Hi everyone, it's Danny. Welcome to Casual Sundays, where we get to have orchid discussions. But before we start the subject, I would just like to make a shout out to the anonymous donation that we received on orchidnature.com. Even though you choose to remain anonymous, I'm really grateful for you. We appreciate it, and we will definitely put your donation to good use with orchids and more information on orchids, and hopefully better and better. That's my end goal, to provide the information that probably lacks on the internet, or the information you guys are interested to know. So thank you again, and let's dive into the subject. Today we will talk about a subject that many of you guys have asked me, and I thought I should make a video discussion about it because it is just so popular lately, and this is growing orchids in the water culture method. What it means is that an orchid is kept bare-rooted, so without any media at all, in a container of some sort. It can be a decorative container, a glass vase, whatever container it is, and what you do is keep the orchid without any media, bare-rooted. A few days you keep it dry, a few days you keep it in water, completely submerged with the root system. Now, I don't particularly like or use this technique, so I don't have a proper example to show you, but you get the idea. Bare root orchids, a few days without any type of water, a few days with water, completely submerged with the root system. Not the whole orchid, just from the base downwards. As I said, I don't like this method and I don't want to use it, but I will tell you why, so you know my reasons. Because many of you think that if I don't use it, then it's wrong. Alrighty, so I will start with the first example. Here I have actually a little Phalaenopsis, mini Phalaenopsis. I mistreated it, completely forgotten it somewhere, and I thought I should experiment the water culture method with it. Needless to say, it didn't went so well for me. I'll tell you why it didn't went so well. Now, since this method implies you to know when you should keep your orchid in water and when you shouldn't keep your orchid in water, it's safe to assume that my mind will be a bit confused. I have 100 orchids. Let's say I don't keep all of them in water culture, but I do need to water them. Some of them need more frequent watering than others. So practically the media itself tells me when I kind of need to water my orchid depending on the orchid that I have. Some orchids don't need to stay dry for long periods of times. Some orchids need to have a dry, let's say, period between waterings and so on. So practically I use the media to tell me when I need to water the particular orchid. Of course, for most of my orchids I do kind of have a schedule, but for some orchids, which might be potted in baskets or smaller pots or simply have particular needs, I do check the media and I know what to do. With water culture, on the other hand, I might look at an orchid which does not have water and wonder, when the heck did I water this? Is it time to put water in, or is it not time? Because once an orchid is out of water, in a few hours the roots will become dry no matter what you do. So in the very same day, when you remove all the water, the orchid will be dry. When do I need to water this orchid again? So what I did with this particular one is actually pot it in sphagnum moss, pure sphagnum moss, because I just don't want to hassle with watering it and having another trouble on my head. And actually what this orchid does is putting out new roots, is actually doing really well. It didn't used to have roots, and because I forgot it, the water level sometimes hit the leaves and sometimes it dried, and I have some deposits here because I tried to fertilize it just a little bit. Anyway, the thing is, the container I had it in got really full of algae. It didn't look good. I totally forgot when to water and when not to water and so on. I did want to experiment this thing, but from the get-go I realized this thing is not for me. I don't have the mindset and the patience to go through this. Keep in mind, I do a lot of things. Apart from my life, I do a lot of things with orchids. I film them, I talk about them, I repot them, I enter a lot of information on Orchid Nature, I do videos, I respond to your comments. Anyway, my schedule is really full. And to have another issue to keep in my mind, it's impossible for me, at least at this stage. So only from this perspective, it's a no-no for me. I do not have the time and mindset and lifestyle necessary to actually use this technique. So it's not that it's actually wrong to do it, it's just that I do not have time to experiment with it. Luckily, there are a few of you guys who are experimenting with it, and yeah, the information is there on the internet, so everything should be fine. Maybe at some point I will experiment with it. Right now, I do not have time, and this is the main reason why I don't do it. Now, because I like to go more into details whenever I think about a subject or talk about a subject, There are some concerns with this technique, actually. Now, most of you guys experiment with Phalaenopsis orchids, and that's perfectly fine. Phalaenopsis are survivors. You can actually abuse them quite a lot. The only instance where they actually will fuss is if you rot the crown. This is their soft spot. Not to mention root rot, but that's a different problem. Sometimes you can get away with it, but crown rot, it's pretty fatal for them. So as long as you don't rot the stem or the crown, everything should be pretty fine with a Phalaenopsis. I can guarantee you that if I would place a Phalaenopsis on this desk and make sure that I water it in time, it will grow and it will do beautifully. This is how Phalaenopsis are. However, other orchids are not quite like that, and I would like to mention here the Nellie Eiler and Miltoniopsis. If you've ever grown these orchids, you know they are fussy things. They really like moisture. They like to have constant moisture. The roots are pretty fragile, so if you forget to water them, the grow tips can actually be stunted. Anyway, safe to assume Miltoniopsis and Nellie Eilers will not be a good subject for this experiment. Other stuff like Buffinias, again, I don't think will be a good experiment. Maybe Stanhopias, everything that really requires moisture. Masdevallias, I don't think they will do great in this experiment at all, really. Now, the second concern, which is a bit more frightening to me. Now, think about it. Orchids develop roots which attach really strongly to surfaces. I don't know if you noticed, but most orchids do well when they get to attach themselves to something. This is why we never, let's say, overpot orchids, because we want the roots to go and wrap themselves on the sides of the pot. They always kind of seem to do better when they're attached. Mounting orchids works pretty much on the same principle. The orchids really attach their roots on the mount, and of course you have the natural growth pattern and so on, but basically the roots attach. Now with the bare root method, the water culture, practically you will not have a place for the roots to attach unless you kind of let it go and attach itself to the ceramic or whatever container you might have. But really I didn't see that happen. So the main concern is on the long run here, how will the orchid handle the fact that it's not secured somewhere? It isn't its genetic code to feel good if it's really attached to something and feel secure. Again, with phals, this might not be a problem, but with others, it might be a problem. And when I say long run, I don't say a week, 2 weeks, 2 months, 6 months, a year. I say 3, 4, 5 years. Orchids have this inertia. They can do particularly well even if they're starting to feel bad. Because they grow so slow, metabolism is slow, everything is pretty slow with them compared to other plants. So showing signs of something not to its liking will take some time, particularly with Phalaenopsis orchids, which, I don't know, somehow tend to find resources everywhere. Now, returning a bit to Cattleyas and Cattleya-related orchids, I'm not sure how they will handle 2 or 3 days submerged completely in water. They will handle no water because of their nature, but completely submerged, I really don't know. And last summer, I did have to keep them in the pool of water, if you remember. Whatever was Cattleya-related orchids, it didn't do so well, my friend. The roots from the bottom, they're gone. Phals had absolutely no trouble with this, with submerging them. They really are survivors, but Cattleyas, not so much, and I can assure you that the Encyclias really did suffer because of this. The bottom roots were completely mush. But again, this is something to be observed. So in the end, I'm not saying it's a wrong technique. If you like it, if you want to experiment with it, do go ahead and experiment. Try it out with Phalaenopsis. If you don't want to, I don't know, lose orchids, you can try it out with whatever orchid you want. It is an experiment. But you know what? Some experiments are for some people, while for others, they're not so appealing. And to me, it's not appealing, particularly because I don't have a lot of Phalaenopsis orchids anymore. I only have the species and a few hybrids, and I don't want to really mess around with the species because it's not so easy to get them, and sometimes they're a bit expensive. So I just want to play it safe with them and not experiment with them. But you are definitely free to experiment, and the more you experiment and you share it with all of us, the more we will know. So in the end, everybody will do a certain experiment, and the more experiments we do, the better it is for everybody. If somebody does something, it doesn't mean that I should do it, and if I do something, it doesn't mean that somebody else should do it as well. So okay, thank you for proposing this subject for a casual Sunday. Now you know my opinion on things. Let me know what your opinion is down below, or if you've ever experimented with something like this. If you like this video, then please give it a thumbs up, and if you have other suggestions for casual Sundays, just leave me a comment down below with your proposal. If you'd like to see more orchid videos from me, just subscribe to my channel. I post daily. If you have questions about orchids in general or other suggestions for videos, not necessarily for Casual Sundays, just leave me a comment again down below. I always get back to you. If you click on the left side of your screen, you'll be directed to orchidnature.com, where you'll find care sheets, identification sheets, and also forums. And if you click on the right side of your screen, you'll find a video about how to shape a Phalaenopsis orchid spike to create a beautiful waterfall. Thank you guys so much for joining. I'll see you next time. Bye!